Well, good morning, everybody. First off, I just want to say that very happy to be here. Can you guys hear me in the back? You guys are good? I want to thank Lainey and Arissa. Is Lainey? Can we give Lainey and Arissa a hand? They've been Lainey's been in class and doing a lot of stuff, and I'm constantly phoning her, asking her questions. So, I want to thank Howard, of course, as well for all the support he's providing, not only to the Aspen School business, but for our city and our province. And certainly glad to be here, and congratulations on a very successful event supporting young people. I do want a couple of personal shout-outs. A friend of mine's here, Nick Bolton is here. I've known Nick for a long time. Supported me in the work I was doing in Point Douglas. And I got to work alongside his son, Rob, who was supporting children, young people, some of the poorest children, young people in the city. So it's great that Nick is out here. And Anna Maria is here. I got to see Anna Maria. We work very closely together at the University of Winnipeg. And so I know that she's doing tremendous things for the Aspen School business. Now, so as you've heard, I represented the area of Winnipeg's North End, the area of Point Douglas. So if you were to take a postal code, I represented one of the lowest income postal codes in an urban area in the entire nation. So I was born and raised in Winnipeg's North End. It has an incredible history where people going through the toughest times in their life, they've come from all over the world. And when they had the least, they immigrated to Winnipeg's North End. The Jewish community, the German community, the Polish community, Indigenous people from all over Manitoba. When they come to Winnipeg, many of them find a place that they call home in Winnipeg's North End. And we continue to see that. Our Filipino brothers and sisters that are coming over to make a better life for themselves and their families. Many of them are getting established in Winnipeg's North End. So when they're going through their most troubling times, by working hard and working together, they've been able to overcome struggle and challenge. And so it has an incredible history. And I'm born and raised in Winnipeg's North End. My dad raised me as a single father. I continue to live there with my wife and 3 boys. And so to be able to represent a neighborhood like that in the Manitoba legislature, I tell you, is a pretty unique experience. But one of the things I can tell you is that when you're in politics, I'll be standing in line at the local Tim Hortons, ready to get my steep tea. And someone will see me, and you meet 2 kinds of people. And you meet one kind of people who look at a neighborhood like that and look at it, and they'll approach you and say, they'll tell you about all the struggles and all the hardships and all the challenges. And they always make you feel like you're never going to make a difference. And when I'm standing in line at Tim Hortons and they're coming towards me, the second kind of person that I know I'm going to meet is people who understand and recognize and they know hardship in a real way. But they don't stay there very long. They'll say, Chief, here's what's going on in this particular part of the neighborhood, but here's what I think we can do. We've been struggling here, but Chief, I tell you, all we have to do is do A, B, and C. So you meet 2 kinds of people. When you're in politics, I can tell you, nobody's worried to tell you what they think. That's one thing I learned being in politics. And so you meet these 2 kinds of people. Now, for me and my friends that grew up in the neighborhood, like most people, we didn't have a lot of wealth. We didn't grow up with much. In fact, I grew up, like a lot of my friends, on social assistance. But the people that were in our lives, our families, our coaches, our teachers, our community leaders, when they looked through our eyes, they didn't see hardship. They saw potential. And although probably research said a lot of things about a poor Native kid in the North End, they always made me feel like anything was possible. And so what happens is when people see potential in you as a young boy, and they make you feel like anything is possible, those values, those principles get instilled in you. And as you get older, you seek out other people who are like that. You seek out other people who have an ability to see potential. You seek out people who always want to work at making things better, even in the face of hardship. And so, as we talk about leadership, and Howard did a great job of sharing with you some of the pieces that I'm going to talk about in my presentation this morning, but you often see two kinds. And I often saw two different ways that you could look at leadership. And I saw people in the neighborhood that I represented that would look at an issue and they would say, this isn't right. I think this is unfair. Whether it be things around poverty or on racism or on equity for girls and women in our neighborhood. And they would take a step out and they would put themselves in a position where they had to show a lot of strength and courage. And to talk about things that sometimes were very uncomfortable to talk about. And we see that kind of leadership in our community every day. And it's an important way to display leadership, and we need to continue to see that. But there's another way in which you can show leadership as well, where you take time to recognize, to say to yourself, maybe it's my voice that doesn't need to be heard. Maybe the best thing I can do to show leadership is to step back and strengthen somebody else's voice. Stand in solidarity with someone else to make sure that that voice is projected. That making sure that the particular voice, that maybe there isn't enough attention drawn to that, you will stand in solidarity with that person to make sure, or those people to make sure that those voices are collectively heard. And I often saw that. Now, I fundamentally think it's important that we take time to come and talk about this topic here today. And here's why. When you represent a neighborhood that I was representing, or you're trying to deal with things that are incredibly difficult and hard to deal with, what will happen, and it happened to me, I would get up in the morning, and a neighborhood that has given me so much, I would look in the mirror, and I would say to myself, I wonder if I'm making a difference. I wonder if I'm able to give back and to do the things that so many people did for me. And when you're dealing with challenge, and you're dealing with hardship, you sometimes have doubt. And so what you have to do is you have to take time to come together. You got to take time to come and spend time together to share with one another like we're doing this morning. And network with one another. But most importantly, take some time to celebrate some stories of success and achievement and resilience. So when I have the opportunity to come and share with all of you, first off, I rarely say no unless there's a conflict in my schedule. But I always try to make sure that I take the time to go and do this. One, it helps not only with my network, but it reminds me that there's a group of people who care about the potential and the possibilities of our neighborhoods and our city. And so one of the things that I had learned, I have a very good friend, his name is Yvon Dumont. He's a former lieutenant governor. One of the first Indigenous lieutenant governors appointed to that position by, at the time, Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. And so he became a very good friend and a mentor to me. And so I asked him, I was applying for a job at the school division, River School Division. So I asked him, I said, Yvon, will you, because we used to meet at the local Salisbury House and have coffee. So I said, would you be my reference? He said, yeah, I'll be your reference. So I applied for the job, I went through the application process, and I got the job. But then I thought, holy smokes, it's Sunday night. I got to start my first job Monday morning. And I was feeling pretty scared. I was pretty worried about it. I was pretty insecure. So I thought, well, I'll call Yvon. I said, Yvon, could you meet me for coffee tonight? He said, yeah, sure. So I met Yvon at the local Salisbury House. I said, look, and he was always good at building up my confidence. He was always good at making me feel good about myself. So I said to Yvon, I said, I'm going to be working with teachers and principals and superintendents and school trustees. And I don't even know what school trustees do. But I got to tell you, Mom, I feel pretty inadequate to do this job. And my job was simply to improve the academic achievement for low-income students. That's ultimately what my job was. So I said to Yvon, I feel pretty inadequate. And he said, well, Kevin, let me tell you, The reason you feel inadequate is because you are inadequate. Holy smokes, that's a pretty funny way to build my confidence before I start work tomorrow. But he said, look, the people in essence that you're worrying about, that you feel insecure about working with, they're inadequate too. Because if they weren't, they wouldn't be hiring you. So what you have to understand is that there's a lot of people who are going to support you. There's a lot of people who want you to do well. It's going to be up to you to use those people. I'll support you. And he talked about circles of knowledge. And Yvonne was a former lieutenant governor and a background, particularly around the Métis people. He said, I'll support you. And then you get somebody like Dr. Lloyd Axworthy, president of the University of Winnipeg. And I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Axworthy. He represented a university that was founded and built in the core area of our city. And he always had this vision that an institution that was founded in our inner city should have an ability to share its services and resources with people in that neighborhood. He had this idea that no matter who you are or where you come from, everyone should get a tap on the shoulder to say, university is for you. But what impressed me most about Lloyd was his cultural IQ. He's a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. And if you talk to him, to him about his political success and where he's come, he could tell you a lot about the Jewish community, because the Jewish community was very supportive of Dr. Axworthy and the challenges that the community has faced. And he could talk to you about good immigration policy, about what that means to our city and our province. He was the first person that I ever heard stand at a microphone in a public address and said that he was on Treaty 1 territory, the homeland of the Métis. He was somebody that, and continues to be somebody, that has been honored with a companion, the highest distinction a citizen in our country can get. And although he's experienced in his years, he continues to spend his time talking about and trying to provide support around what's happening around the world with refugees. Not only here in our country, but places like Germany. And as he's doing that, he talks and works with First Nations people to talk about economic development zones here. He is someone who continues to build his cultural IQ. Then you get somebody like Chief Clunas, first black chief of police in our country. And I want to tell you something about Lloyd. He's from Winnipeg's North End, by the way, and so is Chief Clunas. When his family immigrated from Jamaica, they found their home. And when Chief Clunas was appointed the chief of police for our city, his very first address, keynote, came at the Fort Garry Hotel, where he had lawyers, he had police officers, he had people that worked in our justice system. And people were interested in what he was going to say, and all the media were there. And he talked about a culture of safety. Talked about how important it was for him to stand in solidarity, to work with our Indigenous community, our new Canadian community. He wanted to make sure that the Winnipeg Police was seen different. That you look now and you take a group of people that work hard to keep the community safe, like the Bear Clan, often the police are walking with them. So he recognized that he had to expand his network and stand in solidarity with people and work with people. He wanted to give a different perception about what the police were trying to do, and he called it a culture of safety. And by the way, during his time, and I'm not guessing on this, whether you looked at violent crime or property crime, and how you want to measure safety, if you look at the latest data when he was chief of police, it always went down. Always made our community safer. I think he just wrote a children's book, actually. So you take somebody like Elaine Randall, who's a Kukum, which means grandmother in Ojibwe. And there's something about our elders in our seniors in our community, and you probably get this from your own grandparents, that when you ask them for advice, their advice always seems so simple. It's so practical. And it's like that because it comes from experience. It comes from a deep place of humility. And we should always draw on people who work from a place of humility. We should continue to work and make sure that the decisions, the things that we do, that we seek advice from our elders, from our seniors, from people who come before us. Their advice will seem simple, but it comes from a lived experience. You take somebody like Lainey, who's here. Somebody whose I was leaning on to try to get ready for today's presentation. You know, do you know what I love to read is? Put your hand up if you know what I love to read is. So, it's one of the rare things we do in public education together in the entire country. It's the idea of getting role models to come in to read to kids. It's a pretty simple concept, right? You get a role model to come in, they read to kids, and then the idea is because you're the role model, you'll inspire them to read. So I get asked to do I love to read all the time. Now let's define what a role model is. A role model is anyone who can create and influence change. So the gang leader who lives down the street is a role model. Not the kind of role model we want, but that gang leader can influence change. So this is what happens. Every year I go, and I'll use Lainey as my example. So me and Lainey go together, and I always bring a young person with me to go to I Love to Read. So I say, Lainey, can you come to I Love to Read with me? She said, sure, Kevin, I'll come. So we go into William White School. I have a book. Lainey's got a book. Right? So a couple of things that happen. First thing is you want the book and you want to practice reading it because you're scared you're going to forget how to read the word apple or banana, and then it's going to be really embarrassing. So for some reason you get more nervous reading to children than you do public speaking. So then you read. I read a book, Lainey reads a book, we say to the kids, we sit on a chair and all the kids sit in front of us on the carpet. So do you have any questions? 100%. Every single kid has a question. Now none of them have a question to do with anything you've read, but they all have questions. 90% of the questions, 9 out of 10 questions, who did they ask, me or Lainey? Lainey, right. Why? Why do all those kids ask Lainey the question and not me? Because she's younger. You have a natural ability to create and influence change, whether you want to know it or not. No matter how hard I try, I can't get those kids to look at me the way they look at Lainey. And that's okay. I think that's a good thing. But one of the things that all of you have to recognize, and if you look at the biggest changes in our world that have happened, how old were the people who started Microsoft? The guys who started Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The biggest changes in our world, how old were they? I was just talking to Nick, who ran a very successful company. And he talked about how important it is to continue to be innovative, to be creative. And where do we get that from? Where do we get the best ideas from? From young people. And no matter who you are or where you come from, if you ask a young person, do you want to be the kind of role model that asks kids to join a gang or inspire them to read? They will always tell you, I want to inspire children to read. So one thing that we have to recognize is that young people, all of you have a natural ability to create and influence change. The other thing that we have to do is work collectively hard to make sure that you have structures to be able to do that, which is why you have a conference here this morning. None of you would be here on a Saturday morning as young people if you didn't want to inspire children to read. So we have to keep working to make sure that we do that. I've always said that it's irresponsible of us to ask anyone to overcome hardship and challenge unless we can show others who've done it. You can't simply tell a young person it's possible. You have to be able to show it. And always remember, a story of hardship is always easier to tell than a story of success, a story of achievement, a story of resilience. There was a mother yesterday morning, got up in Winnipeg's North End. She's got 3 kids. She's on social assistance. She's poor. And she got up and she made sure that her kids were fed. And she got them out the door. And she got those children to school on time. And then she grabbed a backpack and she walked 8 blocks to a place called Urban Circle. Because she's trying to get her GED. She's trying to get her grade 12 diploma. And if you were to look at that woman's resume, if you were to look at her life, you'd come to one conclusion. You would say, if I had to go through all of that, there is no possible way I would be sitting in a classroom trying to get my GED. Her story is an incredible story of success, of achievement, a remarkable story of resiliency that you won't hear. And there's hundreds and hundreds of stories like that come from Winnipeg's North End, that come from places all over the province. But those are often not the stories that you hear. So we can't ask others to tell stories of success. We have to make sure that we're doing that ourselves. We have to make sure that we always do the right thing so that young people that are struggling every day always know that they can overcome it by showing them examples. Then you got Howard Moore, who took time to help me prep for today. And got to talk to Howard about his background, his early days, reaching out, working with the Indigenous community, and how that becomes such an important part of who he is now. You know, the one thing that I can tell you about the professions that all of you are moving into, and I know this from being in jobs in the economy, coming off of a portfolio, being a minister of jobs in the economy, you meet a lot of entrepreneurs, established ones, the kinds I work with now, people like Nick, and aspiring ones, like all of you. You get to meet people with that entrepreneurial spirit. And what impresses me the most, and the thing that I've tried to understand about that spirit, is there's people like you who are prepared to put it all on the line, put your name on the line, to put your sacrifice time with your family, to put your financial resources on the line. And it's this idea of risk. It's calculated risk, but it is risk. And people with that entrepreneurial spirit, whether aspiring or established, take this risk. So you say to yourself, why? Why do people in these positions of leadership, or they have this entrepreneurial spirit, why are they prepared to take risks? I've come to believe because in our city and in our province, you know, and you should know, that there's people who have your back. That there's people who have come before you, like Howard, who understands before you can have success, just so you know this is true, you are going to have some failure. You're going to have some struggles. But always remember there's a group of people who have your back. There's a group of people who want to make sure that you succeed. And if that wasn't true, you wouldn't be here this morning. The only thing Howard and others will ask is that when you have success, that you do the same thing. That you remember where you come from. You make sure that when you have success, that you give back as well. And when someone faces adversity and they overcome it, we make sure that we help others to be able to do the same thing. So I'm not the smartest person in the room. But here's what I can tell you. I am someone who has a huge circle of knowledge. So when I agree to take something like this, I spend time and talk to Lane. I make sure that I build a relationship with Howard. I reconnect with people like Nick and Anna Maria. So you expand your circle of knowledge, and you consistently do this. All the people I mentioned always do that. They always want to have a strong network. And they want to have a network that helps them with their shortcomings. People that they can work with and they can work hard for. I love the relationship that I'm building with Howard and with Lane. But my responsibility comes not just to ask them for help, but to make sure that I work hard for them as well. That I'm doing everything I can to do a good job here today. So you got to work hard for other people. Now, I wish I could tell you that when you work with all these different kinds of people, and you want to expand your circle of knowledge because you want to maximize your potential, your own personal potential, maybe the potential of your company, maybe the potential of your neighborhood or city. But you should know it's not easy. to work with Chief Clunas, with his background and his organization, the Winnipeg Police Service, and the resources that come with it, and then to work with Dr. Lloyd Axworthy at the University of Winnipeg with that mandate and those resources. And you take the wisdom of our elders and seniors. Many of these things don't work together. They're not designed that way. They don't fit like Lego. So what you have to do is you have to find a way to make them work. And when you do that, you make mistakes. When you try to bring lots of people together, you try to bring resources together to maximize the potential of the outcome you want, you make mistakes. So let's talk about mistakes, because it's fundamentally important in terms of understanding it when it comes to leadership. I played basketball at the University of Winnipeg. And when I played basketball at the University of Winnipeg, I happened to walk onto the best team in the country. Now, you should know they weren't the best team because of me. Oh man, I gotta get going here. They weren't the best team because of me, but I had to play against them in practice. So I made a lot of mistakes. I couldn't score. I kept turning the ball over. So Bill Wedlake brought me in, and he sat me down and says, "Kevin, you know, you're making a lot of mistakes. It's the kinds of mistakes you're making that are driving me crazy." He says, you don't score. And the reason you don't score is you don't shoot. You're a good shooter. You keep turning the ball over, but you never turn the ball over going to the basket to make your teammates better. You're making mistakes of omission. I want you to make mistakes of commission. I want you to make mistakes trying to make your teammates better. And that was the decision I made. I made a lot of mistakes when I was the MLA for Point Douglas. I'm going to probably make a lot of mistakes in the job I'm at, business council, but they will always be mistakes of commission, always being mistakes to try to make people better. And a couple of things that I know is, what are some of the values in which, I'm going to be about 5 minutes over, I hope that's okay. Okay. What are some of those values that help you overcome, that I have seen in leaders, that help you overcome struggle and challenge and hardship? What are some of them? Well, one of the things that, whether we look for it ourselves or we try to instill it in others, is you want people to know, and it didn't matter where I went in the province, and I've probably talked to more young people in Manitoba than anyone I've known, is that young people will consistently tell you the same thing. That they're proud of who they are, they're proud of where they live, they're proud of their hometowns, their home communities. They want to have the opportunity to give back. They want to have the opportunity to be generous, to get a sense of contribution in their neighborhood. So generosity is a fundamentally important value in terms of leadership, but we should define it. Someone who's really rich should never be allowed to be more generous than someone who's poor. And someone who's older should never be allowed to be more generous than someone who's younger. And true generosity is giving away something that means a lot to you. What is that? We all have time. We all have that ability to give up time, to give back. You know, another important value that I see is making sure that no matter who you are or where you come from, that you belong. And it's a very powerful value. You know, the neighborhood I was representing, working with young people, you can see them, young people wanting to join a gang. They were looking for belonging. If we don't give young people and people something positive to belong to, someone will seek them out and get involved in something negative. So understand how powerful this value is people will be willing to deny who they are culturally, feel like they belong. I remember this. My last name is Chief. I'd be a little boy, 5 or 6 years old. Someone say, "Your name's Chief?" "Yeah." "So you need me?" I never wanted to say yes to that, because I thought if I said yes to that, that meant I didn't belong. Now you should know, when I would tell them I was Polish or Ukrainian, they'd never believe me. But it's an incredibly powerful value. Think about this. I'm a young guy born and raised in Winnipeg's North End. Grew up in a social system. I come in and I get the opportunity to be here with all of you. Lainey and Arissa gave me a hug as I walked in. Had a great conversation with Howard. Got to connect with old friends like Nick. The folks over here at this back table, see them over there, you guys want to wave? They took a picture with me. Those guys over there took a picture with me. All of you, as I speak, I can tell you're interested. You're even laughing at my bad jokes. What all of you have done for me today is you've sent one strong message. You have said, while I'm here, that I belong. Everything that you have done, not only preparing me for today, helping me prepare, but as I came into this room, you said, when you are here, Chief, you belong. It's a powerful way in which to maximize the potential of people, of children, of families, of neighborhoods, of a community. One final value, and then I'm wrapping up, and Howard touched on it, is the value of vulnerability. I was out for a jog going over the Salter Bridge. I was getting ready to run in the Manitoba Marathon. I had jogged this bridge hundreds of times. As I was going over, it was still pretty dark. It was end of February, March. I got to the top of the bridge, I encountered 4 people, and I got beat up. And I got beat up pretty bad. And as I was, after the assault that happened, I called Ram, who's here with me, who helps me with these things, get set up. I called Ram and I said, Ram, this is what happened. I got beat up. Can you take me to the hospital? So Ram drove me to the emergency room at Seven Oaks. And I got this idea in my head that if I could make myself physically look better, I would feel better. So when I was in the emergency room at the hospital, I said to the doctor, I said, look, you got to fix my nose. And he said, no, I don't do that. He says, you got to wait for that swelling to come down. I said, no, you got to fix my nose. So the best I can do is I set you up with a nose special at the Health Science Center tomorrow morning. That's the best I can do. I'm going to leave it in his hands. He'll decide what to do. So 6 o'clock in the morning, I head down to the Health Science Center. I don't know if you guys ever had a broken nose, but I meet this nose specialist. So he looks at me, and young guy, he's got big arms, and he grabs my nose and he pops it back in place. And I said, they call you a nose specialist for that? So I called my dentist and I said, I got to come see you. I got some chipped teeth. But don't be alarmed when you see me. I look pretty rough. And he said, well, why don't you wait to come? I said, no. You got to fix my teeth. And then because I played basketball at the University of Winnipeg, I understood the power of ice. And when you ice, you can get rid of swelling. And I didn't go to work, you should know, at the legislature. I decided to go to work in the constituency because I didn't want people to see me. And I started to look better after a couple of days, but I also knew that I was going to have a bit of a challenge because I was in politics. And what was I going to say if the media found out? Plus, I was feeling really bad. Although I was physically looking better, I was feeling worse. You know, a neighborhood that has given me so much, you can't help but feel you let them down because you work so hard to change stereotypes. And so I felt embarrassed by that. I probably felt embarrassed because I'm a guy, but I also felt embarrassed and I felt some shame because I felt like I had let down a whole bunch of people. You work hard to change a stereotype, and there you are. So I was talking to Ram and other people in my life, and I said, what am I going to say if the media find out? How am I going to... There's all sorts of advice you get on spinning and pivoting. But these guys told me, the people that were closest to me said, just tell the truth. Tell them what you told us. We'll support you. We will stand with you. So I did. And one of the guys I phoned to talk about this was Mark Chip, a good friend of mine. He was one of the guys that said, just be honest, you'll have more support than you think. So the Free Press found out, and they said, we're running the story in Saturday's paper. Kevin can weigh in or not. It's up to him. So I did. I sat down with the Free Press, and I said, look, I'm only asking for 2 things. Please don't glorify violence, and try not to beat up on my neighborhood. And I'll be honest, I sat with them for over 2 hours. I was honest, talked about the shame I felt, talked about the incident that happened. It was hard. But when I was done, every other media outlet that you can dream of ran the story. And here's what happened. You should know. It's in my Bible. You shouldn't underestimate this. You should know that I square dance. So in politics, I'm around a lot of people, but because I square dance, I'm even around a lot of people. So not only was I the only jigging politician, I was the only one to do it with the black eye. So I bumped into a lot of people. So here's what happened. When I would bump into people after the story came out, strangers, people I didn't know would come up to me. And they would say, I heard what happened, and with the deepest sincerity, they would say, I'm sorry. And right after that, they would share an incident that had happened to them. And I was glad they did it, because it made me feel, I could tell it was helping me feel better. It was also helping them. It helped me heal. So why am I telling you this story? Well, here's what I know. I don't know all of you personally. I don't know your background. You probably didn't grow up on social assistance like I did. But here's what I know. Here's what I do know. That if you look back in your family history, you'll see real poverty. And my father passed away from alcoholism. And maybe you don't have that shared experience with me. But I know that someone you deeply love and care about has struggled with alcohol. You know, we work hard every single day, particularly in your profession and the professions that all of you want. We work hard every day to work to show people our strength. But no matter how hard we try, we'll always be more connected through our vulnerabilities. And one of the things that you should know is that the young people I represent, there's going to be people that are going to look at you. That there's people now that will look at this room and they will think all of you had perfect lives. They would think that you had no struggles, that you had no challenges. I know that isn't true. I know that you face some adversity and you're going to face more. But I also know that when you face adversity, you have to have a willingness, and all of you will, to overcome it and make sure that other people can do the same thing. The reason that this is so important when it comes to leadership is because when you are sharing your vulnerability, when you show strength and courage to do that, you can't help but be sincere. And when you are sincere, you can build understanding. No one in this room probably got beat up on the bridge, but when you were looking at it, and when you were watching me share that story, you could tell it was hard for me. And in your mind, you said, I understand. And understanding leads to cooperation. And when we have cooperation and we can work together, there isn't anything that we can't overcome. There is no challenges that we can't face. Racism, poverty. Doesn't matter what the challenge is, but we have to start from sincerity to understanding, and that'll lead to cooperation. Now, I see this every day. People who work hard to expand their circle of knowledge. People who are willing to work hard to make sure that no matter who you are, where you come from, you belong, and consistently will show their vulnerability. Here's what I promise you. I'm not in politics anymore, so I like making promises. If from time to time you will share your struggle, you will share your challenges, you will have a new tool. You will have the tool that I have. That when you do that, people will become engaged. And they will want to come and share with you. They will want to come and tell you their challenges. And when you have that, now you have a new tool to be able to work on the challenges that you can help overcome. I just want to share with you a 1-minute video here in closing to give you an example of the people I see every day doing this. There's always a group of people who are very, very good at telling you the challenges. But then there's always another group of people. No matter what the circumstances are, they can always see potential. I think we have to understand that we'll always be more connected through our vulnerabilities than we ever will be through our personal strengths. And here today, we want to support the most vulnerable families. When we can get together like this and share with one another, that's when the services and resources are going to work best.
But we have to make sure as all of those services are getting to the people who need them the most. When we make investments to young people, it actually works. The science, the research, the evaluation is unprecedented, and the economic impacts are absolutely incredible. I've always said that it's irresponsible of us to ask people to overcome hardship and challenge unless we can show them others who have done it. Stories of hardship are always easier to tell, but for every story that you see and read, always remember there's literally hundreds and hundreds of stories of success, hundreds of stories of achievement, of people being able to overcome it. It's the story and the things that we're talking about doesn't just touch young children, it touches their families, it touches their grandparents, it touches their older brothers and sisters. We have to give lots of people choice. We have to engage them. The most important thing is to get the people who believe in the potential of our community all together. That's where we're going to learn the most. Why can't we make that possible?
So this is Little Chief. There he is. That's my son. I asked him if he had any advice for you. He did. He said, always remember to be nice to my dad and follow him on Twitter and Facebook. So I got a tweet here. I'm gonna tweet it, and it's for today. So if you should retweet it, you should favorite. Most importantly, you should follow me on Twitter. And it talks about thank you, Miigwech, which means thank you, Ojibwe, for the opportunity to share, network, and celebrate. Thank you. Have a great morning. Miigwech.